Hello everyone, this is Mikoy and welcome back to another episode of TLT Recap. Today we're going to be reviewing round 6 matchups and predicting, I was going to predict round 7 before another series has instead to play before I even get to recording the video. Thanks guys, really appreciate it. Now, originally I was going to have this video done yesterday or later today. But the audio got effed up, so this time I'm recording by myself, so there's no PokeR 2004, unfortunately, to join me. We had a video done. The audio just got messed up, and unfortunately we weren't able, and unfortunately you couldn't hear our reactions and our analysis, so take 2, basically, for me here today. So, we have a couple of matches to review, and round 7 predictions, of course. But as you know, Richard and Krang already have played, so we're only just gonna have to predict one matchup. But first up, let's recap. First matchup went to Krang versus Danny YSB. This was a game series, and in the end, Danny won, which we were wrong at because we really thought Krang had the versatility in order to perform well in the battle. So it was a kind of a surprise to see Danny win, but also kind of not, because Danny's had a fantastic road so far, and we'll see him again in the winners finals. But let's see how he got here. So first game was NU. It was a pretty straightforward series. I do have a couple of issues that I'm willing to take issue with. First off, the Vaporeon got poisoned really early on, and just unabling to perform what it does best, and Wish Pass. And basically, and I'm assuming that Vaporeon doesn't have Heal Bell, in which that could be useful for any Vaporeon, really, except for like Toxic or Scald. Heal Bell is definitely one to pack on nearly every Vaporeon. I'm not saying every Vaporeon should have a Heal Bell, but at least for a team like Krang's, you're definitely going to need something to take care of the status ailments. Meanwhile, Danny has pretty much got the perfect package here. You got your Levitating Bronzong, which surprisingly went to RU, but we'll talk about it later. You got your Bulkymon like Quagsire and Sylveon, and you got your attackers in Salazzle, Rotomo, and Guzzlord. Also, a weird choice is Scyther on Krang's team, because yes, it may be able to take out Guzzlord and Rotomo, but everything else, basically, Scyther's kind of effed. So, and it's one of those mons where I'm not really. It doesn't really fit in the team, or in my opinion, in the meta in general. So, yeah, Scyther, very odd team choice, but I can see where Krang is coming from and needing a bug flying type to basically be the psychic killer, or basically be the dark killer, whichever you prefer. So, yeah, there were some good plays here. The match itself went fine. Except for the aforementioned power hacks I got. The matchup ended up being fine, but there was one moment that really stuck in the end game, and that is the Leaf Storm missing, unfortunately. If that Leaf Storm had hit, Krang would have a much better time taking out the Quagsire and the Rotomo. The fact that it missed really stung, and in the end, Danny just proved why they are the superior NU player of the two. And, having all that NU experience really paid off, and against one of the best players in the tour, that's gonna really say much. Next up was Yu, which was a really bad day for Krang, unfortunately. This matchup ended up being, well, I wouldn't say not close, but definitely a very one-sided affair, to say the least. Crying got badly hacked in the series. For example, the Slow King. Slow King really didn't do anything. It was sent out. Um, it was sent out. Got flinched by the Fiery Wrath, even though it activated the Cobra Bear, so you know it's gonna tank at least one hit. But the flinch after was the doom signal for poor Crying, and he hasn't been able to recover. And he hasn't been able to recover that for a very long time. Although I will say, the Celesteela Leech Seed, while pretty effective, you notice here there's a tentacle out here, and you know that carries liquid ooze. Unfortunately, Crying fell prey to that, and it took damage off of it. Liquid ooze tentacruel is such a good, effective way of taking care of Celesteelas in general. Just saying. So yeah, Slowking also got critted in the end. It was, again, really unfortunate. Just Slowking has had a tough day. However, I will say about Crying, he brought it back. They brought it back, like when she revealed the Tapu Bulu set that she had, which is actual defensive Tapu Bulu with Toxic, Synthesis, and Horn Leech. You never really see Tapu Bulu because it's so known as a grassy terrain sweeper with Sword Stance, Horn Leech, and close combat. You would think that kinda, if Crying had used that, it wouldn't be as effective as the defensive set that he had. And considering that the Mons Crying had to fall back on, like Nidoking, Tauros, and even Celesteela, that is a good way, and that is a pretty effective tactic to go up against Danny's team. And in the end game happened where Celesteela basically pulled through at a pretty disadvantage, because Danny had 3 Mons left to Crying's Celesteela and something else. But Celesteela pulled through. The Leech Seed, Heavy Slam, Flamethrower tactic really did help. And once Cobalion revealed close combat and Celesteela killed the Cobalion with Flamethrower, you know what's going to happen. And you knew that Celesteela would win the match. Very impressive comeback there by Crying. Next up, we have Ubers, and this was 267 turns. Man, oh man, can you believe it went to 200 turns? And Danny won, doing a 6-0. Isn't that incredible? If I do say so myself. The teams they brought were interesting. Crying had a Chansey and a Clefable, the 2 pink blobs, as I called it, but also had Toxapex, Zygarde, Yveltal, and Lunala. A very stall-heavy team against Danny's very, very balanced Uber's team, which is very effective. It proved to be very effective, and Danny basically knew how to outplay Uber's stall very well. There were a couple of moments there that happened. Crying got parahaxed almost like 3 times with the Clef, or was it the Duskmane? No, I think it was the Clef. But Crying got parahaxed very badly. It enabled Necrozma and Ferrothorn to basically just set up on him. And I will pose you guys a question down in the comments below, because this is something we talked about in the video, and we really never had a definitive answer, but it's been on my mind ever since. Does Swords Dance Necrozma do better than Dragon Dance Duskmane? I'm referring to both Necrozma, Duskmane, but is Swords Dance better than Dragon Dance? Because in my mind, oh yeah, Swords Dance has +2 attack, very effective, but you're losing speed heat off of it. Meanwhile, with Dragon Dance, hence you get the automatic boosts, and you could also autotomize or rock polish and basically get that who's there as well. Oh, and with weakness policy, ooh, that is a very effective one. But yeah, I will pose you that question down in the comments. And going back to the fight, Danny mentioned that he forgot he had aromatherapy on his Xerneas, which was really funny. Because considering the fact that Danny was just letting Marshadow get burned and everything else get paralyzed. Nice. Danny pulled out his Xerneas. Simply said, "Not gonna lie, I forgot I had aromatherapy," and just aromatherapied it, which was really funny. That a small nitpick, but that's just a thing that I noticed. It sticks out. And in the end, the end game also was very noticeable as well, as the two pink blobs got decimated by Xerneas Moonblast, which is real well, considering Chansey, who Chansey is, special defensive tank, and Clefable has its tanking prowess in the special defense, also more so physical in Ubers. But yeah, Fairy Aura really helped, and Xerneas ended up picking the win. And the end game featured Lunala ice beaming the Zygarde to give Danny the second win in their matchup. And the last game they played was RU. It was a very short match. It only lasted like 20 something turns. And it was just a disappointing end for Crying. Danny once again proving that he is superior in lower tiers by absolutely outplaying Crying. And the star of that match was Assault Vest Grimmsnarl, because that set was amazing. It took out half of the team that Crying brought, and really funny scene at the end where Crying basically just gave up and tricked with the Gourgeist, gave Danny Choice Band on his Grimmsnarl, and ended up Assault Vesting the thing, Darkest Lariating the thing to death, to give Danny the whole series and to progress to the winners finals. Very impressive there. And he will meet the winner of Blimax versus Trade. Oh boy, I was very upset that I called this in 3 games. I was joking to say that I said that this will go into 3, and Pokeyard said it was total BS, but it could happen, and it did. It did happen in 3 games, and in the end, LC, NU, and OU, Blimax ended up getting the win in 3 very surprising games, but not surprising for Blimax, but surprising on how Trade played, because Trade played pretty badly. So first up was LC, which had a couple of interesting moments that happened in that series. We had Fungus basically walling an Acrobatics Meanfu, who has already lost its item, and a Scarf Farfetch'd Galar, which did Brave Bird. And in the end, it couldn't kill the Fungus, and that ended up being one of the pivotal mons in Blimax's team. I'm guessing that is a high HP, high defensive Fungus, and so it was able to tank so much hits. But also, Trade's been known to use unpredictable sets. I mean, Abra. In LC, Trade had an Abra that had Inner Focus, Substitute, Psychic Knockoff, Drain Punch. I believe. Oh no, Focus Punch. Sorry, Focus Punch. But yeah, you'd think that set would be weird, right? But it's in the hands of a goated player, so you would think that it would work and would potentially sweep the thing, right? Kinda. Well, it took out the Poniard with the substitute Focus Punch play. That was good. And the following knockoff play, with Abra outspeeding Poniard, that proven to be a crucial moment. But in the end, though, Trade just couldn't keep up with Blimax, got absolutely outplayed at the end, and in the end, Trade tried to make a comeback with Shell Smash Dwebble, but Tra- Blimax kept a Trapinch there. A Trapinch that had Faint, and basically said, "Oh, you faint. You faint now, GG." So that's the story of LC there. Trade absolutely did not play that well. Maybe it's due to inexperience, but I can't fault it. Next game was NU, and the first note that I have here was Bronzong got RU'd because I literally just found out at the second match when I saw Bronzong there. I'm like, huh? Bronzong got moved? Why? Well, it was basically he shunted because it was too OP, I think, in NU. That Steel Psychic typing with Levitate, plus the fact that it was able to wall basically everything in NU, makes it so the Bronzong is one of the most viable mons, and it got shunted to RU. You couldn't hear it in the video, but in the previous video that we did, PokeArt was absolutely salty about that fact. So yeah, she's very, very upset that Bronzong got the RU treatment, and now it's gonna be lost because there are so many better Steel Psychic types there. Wink, wink, Metagross. But yeah, that's what happened. So the NU game was fine. I mean, it was way better played for Trade. Definitely, but Blimax again basically outplayed Trade at a couple of points. First of all, firstly, some of those plays there were pretty good. The Silvally Ground was an interesting choice, but I'm kind of disappointed that it didn't have Rock Slide. Instead, it had Sword Stance, Multi Attack, Flame Charge, U-Turn, the typical Silvally sweeper set. Duh. But Rock Slide because Talonflame exists. And yeah, the second note that I have is I kept expecting burns from Flame Body and Scald, which happened. It's gotten to the point where I can basically predict hacks. So yeah, Flame Body happened once. It got burned. Silvally got burned quite easily, but Diancie came back in, did Heal Bell, another very unconventional set there from Blimax's Diancie, having Stealth Rock, Moonblast, Mystical Fire, and Heal Bell. But you know what? It works. And yeah, the Scald burns on the Diancie was also a factor, but it wasn't really a factor at the end. One of the crucial points that happened in this match was the Rotom play. So Trade basically tricked their Rotom Mo against Blimax's Vileplume. The only problem is that they tricked Black Sludge. And that, according to my notes, is pain. So yeah, Trade ended up tricking the Black Sludge and basically spent the entirety of Rotom's life just finding a way to trick back the Black Sludge into something else. But Blimax said, no, I'm going to switch to my Silvally. And it basically cripple you with my own item. And that certainly was a key factor in that. So yeah, Blimax ended up playing very well. Rotom, with the last of his strength, tried to OHKO the Heliolisk with Leaf Storm, but unfortunately Heliolisk's HP was too damn high, and it lived on 15, and unfortunately Rotom died. Very, very sad. But, the real star of that NU, after all this time talking about NU, the star of that NU game has to be that Expert Belt Duraludon set. That was incredible. Dark Pulse, Flash Cannon, and then something else. I think Draco Meteor was one of them. But yeah, that Duraludon set really was effective. It took out the Banded Golurk, which I really thought the Trade would use more and use it effectively. But Trade kept losing the 50-50s on either Earthquake or Poltergeist, because Earthquake being that Zatu was there, and Poltergeist being that Heliolisk was there. If I may show the teams, because I haven't been showing team yet. So here it is. So yeah, Trade just kept losing 50-50s all throughout that game, and in the end, Golurk really can't do anything, and it was just Expert Belt Duraludon that just ended up being the most crucial of the mons that were set. So yeah, this has come from an outsider's perspective, but I think this is from an outsider's perspective, but I definitely do think Duraludon, Expert Belt Duraludon at least, has potential to be a pretty potent sweeper. And last but not least, we have the OU game, which Trade basically gave up. It was Rain versus Fat Bulk, which Blimax is known to do. Fat Bulk, well, no, Fat Bulk is basically Blimax's style at this point, other than Stall. But yeah, Trade had a Ferrothorn out. It had some answers to some of the Fat Bulk, like Ferrothorn, like Swampert, and then of course the sweeping trio of Pelipper, Urshifu, and Barraskewda. But, you know, this thing carrying Thunder Punch, this thing basically a water killer, and everything else. This thing to basically stop the weather, this one just because it has Sand Veil. But yeah, the Fat Bulk basically crippled Trade all throughout this entire game. Kartana was able to get kills on both Zapdos and Ferrothorn, although with Zapdos he got static, so that's why he had to sack it, which I really thought that would have been the sweeper. If it hadn't for that static effect, Kartana would easily be the sweeper of this series. But yeah, this ended up being a Blimax game, and in the end, I'm still very upset that I called it in 3 games. I really didn't want to, but I just said it casually, and look what happened. Alright, so next up, so that's basically the winner's bracket. We have Danny versus Blimax, a very, very interesting series. He's for sure. And in the loser's bracket, we have Starreal winning against Crunchman in their winner's bracket. We've already covered this series, so you may want to check out that last round's video if you want our thoughts on Starreal versus Crunchman. Basically, Crunchman deserved the Starreal loss. As we've talked about it. We've talked about it in last video, so don't get salty over this, Crunchman. And finally, Richard Pepper versus Skimmy the God. In the other losers bracket matches. So, with Richard versus Skimmy, the first game was Ubers, and there were a couple of interesting sets that they brought. First off is the Air Balloon Xerneas, which, you know, aside from Groudon, what really is there to check other than Groudon, which apparently that's the only check from what I've heard. So, kind of disappointed in that. But the game itself was pretty well played from both sides. There were, of course, the moments where Richard with Kyogre trapped Skimmy's Eternatus with block. It was Scald and Calm Mind, and that proven to be a very effective. Even though Kyogre basically 3-hit KOs Eternatus, it was still a very slow kill, and it proven to be very effective. And yeah, bulk block was very good. There was a lot of unrelated hacks. For example, there was a Precipice Miss and a Blue Flare Miss that had happened, but those were completely unrelated, and it's basically Pokemon. Hacks happens. But the end game was played really well for Skimmy, because I think it was the Spectrier here that basically killed everything once Blissey was done. That basically was the the end game mod from what I remember. I don't know. I've my notes only really wrote down that Skimmy played that in well. So yeah, that's 1-0 for Skimmy. Next up was Monotype, and oh boy, Richard got mega hacked in this one, guys. This is pretty dang bad. This is a pretty dang bad display for the mono main of the two, which, judging from the team, you would think that Richard may have a fighting chance because, you know, flying against Dragon. However, there were a couple of, there was only really one small nitpick I have with that team, and that is Focus Blast on Tornadoes. And this has been on my mind for a while now, but I don't think that Focus Blast on Tornadoes is a very good idea. Yes, you could take out ice types and rock types with that, but A, it's Focus Miss, and 2, there are 5 other move slots that your other Pokemon can basically take out those same kind of types. Heaps as much as Focus Blast is Tornado on Tornadus. And, you know, that might be the case for every Pokemon, you know, having an unconventional move there. But it stings for me, for Tornadus especially, because there are so many good options for Tornadus. Hurricane, Heat Wave, Knockoff, U-Turn for your AV Regenerator set, for example, that are more well-defined than Focus Blast. So I wouldn't personally give it Focus Blast, but it is in your discretion after all. But everything else, though, I will say, no debates here that Richard absolutely got cut in this match. It all started with the Thunderbolt on the Dragapult on his Corviknight, which was setting up Bulk Up. And presumably he's going to do Body Press to basically stop all these Dragon types. But, you know, Parahax comes to bite you in the ass again, and Dragon Dance, Icicle Spear, Kyurem end up being the most effective one of these, and really a really unconventional way to win for Skimmy, and very unfortunate for Richard Pepper to lose in that fashion. So yeah, Skimmy's up 2-0. You would think now that we've revealed that Skimmy went 2-0 in his first 2 games against Richard Pepper. In a best of 3, it would be over. Richard's story would be over, right? So, and in this best of 5, you would think that Skimmy would grab one more win out of these 3 potentially other tiers that he would end Richard Pepper's reign right now, right? Let's check out the OU game, shall we? So first thing you'll notice is that there is a top tier and there is a Hawlucha there. Any guesses to see what kind of style Richard play? Tapu, Hawlucha? Oh, duh, you already know. It didn't even need to use the 4 mons, because all Tapu Fini need to do is set up Misty Surge. Hawlucha could come in, do the Misty Seed, and substitute Bulk Up, Drain Punch, Acrobatics, aka was there ever any doubt that Hawlucha was going to sweep all 6 of these? And the fact that Skimmy has 6 mons that are A, weak to Hawlucha, and B, can resist it, unfortunately, when it gets up to setting up Bulk Ups all that much, it wouldn't really take a hit anymore. Then yeah, Skimmy got a lot of problems there. So Hawlucha got swept. So Hawlucha swept Skimmy's team in OU. RU was not much better. And this is This is something that I've noticed in the first couple of rounds that Richard has played. Whenever there's RU and Richard has to play it, Richard always brings the same RU team. Necro, Klefki, Grimmsnarl, Incineroar. For the past 3 rounds that Richard has been in, that in RU, he's always managed to pull off this same team. And Skimmy, unfortunately, either he didn't know, we'll never know, but it ended up being the cheesiest cheese you'll ever eat, because Klefki set up screens, Necrozma set up the weakness policy, he autotomized, or rock baller, sorry, I often mixed the two for both of them, but anyway, Necrozma ended up getting setting up the weakness policy and ended up sweeping all of Skimmy's team, which is very effective, which ended up being very effective. And I think with the weakness policy resurgence, that set has gotten to be pretty damn dangerous. And then finally, the match is now 2-2. Richard Pepper and Skimmy the God have each pulled off massive wins against each other. So it ended up being 2-2. Richard has pulled off cheese in order to tie the series against Skimmy. So what did Skimmy do? I'ma steal your idea and bring Trick Room in UU. So Skimmy brought Trick Room. And it was fairly a decent fight. I wouldn't say it was amazing, but you know what? It's the level that these two are. So Skimmy brought Trick Room, very interesting Trick Room as well. You never see really Mesprit and Gyarados in a Trick Room team before. Meanwhile, Richard has brought a pretty standard UU team. However, the moments that had happened and really surprised everyone. So, Skimmy sets up Trick Room and basically starts sweeping. You know, Gyarados took out the Keldeo with Power Whip under Trick Room. That was a good start. And Conkeldurr with Guts, it was able to take out Chansey and Thundurus Therian. So you would think that Skimmy has this in the bag, right? However, Aegislash said, "Hell nah, my Deus Ex Machina," or I should call it Aegislash Ex Machina. Aegislash said, "Hell nah, bruh, I'm gonna start sweeping," and he basically took out the Porygon, which already had its Eviolite being knocked off before. Got taken out by Iron Head. This got Shadow Sneaked. This got Shadow Sneaked, and oh no, both the Psychic types got Shadow Sneaked. And in the end, it wasn't able to do anything. Aegislash just went on a tear. Conkeldurr may have gotten the knockoff on AG, but it was at the cost of what? Only having Marowak left, and Trick Room was already down by that point. So Incineroar came in, knocked off the Alolan Marowak, and ended up taking the win for Richard Pepper, who came back after a 2-0 deficit in order to proceed through the next round. So that was all of the round 6 matchups. Let's move on now to the round 7 matchups, shall we? One match has already been played. I've already talked about this twice now, but I'm still salty about it because they played before I even get to record the video. I'm so salty. So the match that happened is Crying versus Richard Pepper. And I would have predicted Crying to win in 4 anyways, so it wasn't really a surprise that Crying won. However, the road that Crying won on was certainly an interesting one. Let's take a look at the teams. OU had pretty interesting teams. Crying had Weavile, which basically a lot of these but it was interesting to see Richard get the sword against boosted Sucker Punch on Bisharp on Weavile. That put Weavile at 8, and Bisharp would be dead afterwards. But kudos to Crying for being able to keep the Weavile healthy. Well, not healthy, but alive, to basically take out the Slowking in one hit. The Rillaboom, and as I mentioned, the Bisharp. Weavile, I think this is banded. Pokeart did mention that this was basically a team that she had, but the sets here were completely modified. For example, the Weavile having heavy duty boots on her team. For Crying's, it was, I assume, banded. So that's why it was able to take out the Slowking in one hit. It also had leftovers on Corviknight, which Pokeart had. I think it was Rocky Helmet, if I wanna say. But in the end, and Weavile basically outmatched pretty much everything, and you would think, and so let me just play the series so you can see that I'm not. So there's the Sword Stance attack on the Weavile. There's a knockoff, and there's the Sucker Punch that's able to get to 8, and everything else basically took a lot. So, and the end game, of course. End game. Once Crying had the end game. So once Crying had Richard whittled down to everything, you would think that Richard, because he had Zeraora in the back, you would think Richard would come around and mass reverse sweep, right? Burn happened. Yeah, Zeraora got burned. It sucked for Richard because he was prepared to sweep it off using the bulk up Zeraora, but in the end, Zeraora got burned. It was unable to take out. Pretty much everything, and it just basically died to Blacephalon. So, in the end, it was very unfortunate, and it was a sign of things to come for poor Richard Pepper. So, next up was RU, in which Richard actually brought another team this time. It's not the same RU team as he had in 3 previous rounds. Hooray! Instead, it was the terrifying Metagross set with Cosmic Power Body Press that I've come to really love so much. And against Crying's team, it's very effective. Well, there's a Mimikyu, but once that Mimikyu is dead, everything else dies to that particular set. So, yeah. Small little nitpick here that had happened. So, there were a couple of points. So, this game, again, this was fairly clean, I think. This was, compared to the rest of the series, this was fairly clean. But, this was pretty funny. But some moments here are pretty, well, I wouldn't say pretty funny. Well, first off here, Crying couldn't kill the the Nidoqueen even at 1 HP. That was really funny to me. I don't know. Makes you think that Richard potentially has a chance of sweeping. And there's the other part where Gardevoir basically lived a Shadow Sneak boosted Life Orb Mimikyu, and you think, oh yeah, Richard's probably got this, and you end up tricking and gave him the Choice Scarf, which okay, I would see. Hey. But yeah, the end game basically Crying had Flygon out against Obstagoon and Metagross, and ended up losing for Richard. Crying absolutely outplayed Crying in that. Crying absolutely outplayed Richard Pepper in that. Next up was Monotype. Crying brought Ice against Richard's Water. Now, granted, ice is not a granted ice is one of the worst defensive typings, but and offensively and offensive typing, it's pretty good. But comparatively speaking, which one of these teams is better, rain or hail? Hail. So, credit to Crying. She brought friggin' Arctozold with 9 tails, and that is a dangerous combo, especially Slush Rush. Hush has not been banned yet. I really wanted to. G-Darm exists, Weaviles exist, and Cloyster exists, and of course Kyurem. But Richard absolutely played better, I would think. Although there were a couple of moments where Richard got hacks, including the Hydro Pump miss on Finny, which was very unfortunate. But in the end, it was just a standard mono battle between Rain and Hail. You would think, and expectedly, that Rain would win, because it just did. Barraskewda, I think it was Barraskewda, picked up the win there under Rain. And finally, we come to Yu. Ooh, this was the ending to the series, and things really did not turn well for Richard. First off, decent starts. Decent start with the Marie having custom berry. One thing I'll note from this game is that Crying had. I think Crying has a secret obsession with custom berries, because 2 of the 6 mons have custom, which one of them was a really crucial custom berry, but the other one wasn't too shabby there. It was there to give Skarmory one more layer of hazards on Moltres. And then a couple of turns in, we had the Battle of the Moltreses, and Richard having Mystical Fire is interesting, but proven to be quite damaging, as it just let Crying set up Berserk for getting that special attack boost back up again. And with the addition of Nasty Plot and Agility. And another thing to note is that Moltres absolutely, it critted the Moltres with Fiery Wrath, but also about Chansey. You would think after 3 Nasty Plots, Chansey would survive at least a 3-hit KO at least, or a 2-hit KO. Maybe I'm just being generous. But Chansey got flinched. It got off 1 Seismic Tots, and by the time Richard wanted to heal Chansey, already dead. So that's the story there. And then it was just a basic review game from here on out. And you would think that Aegislash, and one critical moment in that match is that Aegislash would win Richard Pepper the game. But Primarina said no, and he scalded Burn it, and burned the Aegislash, which was unfortunate because that Aegislash was physical. Dumb. Well, that was dumb, and you would think, and the saw that Primarina, and it was Primarina versus Zarude left, and you would think, okay, Richard's got this. Even a low Darkest Lariat would kill Primarina. Psych! Custop Berry Primarina kills the Moonblast the frick out of Zarude, and ended up winning Crying the series. A very, very unfortunate end to a GOAT's incredible run. I mean, credit to Richard for making this far, ladies and gentlemen. You may keep the memes of Richard Pepper might potentially win TLT, but he's had a very good run. He took out Arsenine and Gray in the first 2 rounds, and just basically had a pretty damn good road ahead of him. And it was a very and if you had told me 2 years ago that Richard would do absolutely well in TLT, I would have laughed. But here we are in 2022, and Richard Pepper has won. has lost against Crying, and it was not a very spectacular loss. But you know what? The road ahead was very good. Congratulations, Richard, on making this far. Although, well, you are out. Crying is in, well, not the losers finals, but very close, one step closer to the losers finals. Because next up we have Sterile versus Trade. This one ought to be a good one, ladies and gentlemen. And although to be fair to Trade, Sterile is way easier to predict and basically prepare for, other than Blimax. Yeah, Trade versus Sterile is going to be a pretty interesting matchup. I would think that Sterile wins, and we've Pokeart's already written down her predicts on who would win. She said Sterile was going to win in 4. I absolutely agree, because Sterile has had a pretty damn good journey ahead of him, and he's one of the favorites, of course, to win the entire thing. So, probably the number 1 seed left in the tours. So, yeah, Sterile should, I think, could win in 4 games. We have, I don't know the tiers yet, unfortunately, so we can't really predict it based on tiers, but, you know, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens at the end. So that's gonna do it. We have covered round 6 in its entirety, and we've covered one round 7 match, and the other will be played during this week, so make sure to tune into that. Tune in next week, where we're going to cover Sterile versus Trade, and we're going to predict the winners bracket finals and the losers bracket finals. Actually, yes, so yes, I have misspoken. Crying is indeed in losers bracket finals against the winner of Sterile versus Trade. So the winner of that meets the winner of winners bracket finals and moves on to the grand final, which will be pretty exciting. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Please leave a like, comment, and down below on who do you think is going to win this entire thing. Subscribe to my content, and